Hello, everybody. Let me, talk title. My CSS is faster than your React. Building a CSS-only React search. Let me run through my slide real fast. That's it. That's the only slide of the presentation. The rest is going to be hands-on. Just us together. So I'm going to need your undivided attention. I'm going to need your help. We're going to do some live coding together. So if I make some silly mistakes, and I usually do, I'm going to need somebody to shout my syntax errors and probably also post a picture of it online just to laugh at me. So, hi. What? You raised your hand. Okay. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm EVYATAR. I'm a software engineer at Meta. We have a social network, and thank you. And one of my main passions is building tools for other developers, open source libraries, and really a few weeks ago, about a month ago, there was a really nice episode at the new podcast by Dan, Seniors at Scale, where Eric was there talking about open source at scale. He was talking about building what's the name of the library? Final Form and building Redux forms. And he said there that his passion is exactly the same thing: building tools for other developers. That the main user of what he builds is another developer. I'm the same thing, and I'm going to talk today about one of these tools that I build. And building these tools, building these open source packages, I often encounter challenges that I don't usually encounter at work because I have a more diverse set of users, more diverse people that actually interact with it and install that in their applications and libraries. And one of those today I'm going to talk about is Emoji Picker React, which happens to be somehow one of the more popular open source packages for emoji pickers on React applications. Wait, where is it? There it is. With almost 450,000 downloads weekly, which is pretty impressive. I never imagined it growing it this much. And being such a popular library, I realized many people install it on many different machines with many different criteria. And what I learned is that what works for me on my machine doesn't usually work for other people, especially in terms of performance. So this, for example, is a brand new MacBook Pro M4. So brand new, very powerful. And I didn't even notice the issues that the performance of such a component might have. Now I'll just demo the component quickly. So this is the website of the component, just a demo page. It's what you would expect from an emoji picker. It has all of the emojis, roughly 1,850. It has all of the features you would imagine, so selecting skin tones or selecting specifically variations of those, custom emojis, and one of the features it contains is search. Now, searching in a component is, as you can see, pretty fast, and this is how it works in the component. But imagine for a moment, what I have here is a component of an emoji picker with 1,800 emojis, and what I have to do when searching those emojis, I have to basically remove a bunch of elements from the DOM and add many elements back, and React does the DOM diffing, and this apparently takes a lot of time. And this was one of the main issues that I would get on the Emoji Picker GitHub page, that the component is slow on search. And how slow on search? I'm going to show you. So I have here a version of the picker that does not have all of the improvements that we're going to build today. And if I start typing now, well, it feels pretty fast. But remember, this is a pretty fast computer. This is a MacBook Pro M4. But if I throttle it down to like something slower, like let's do a times 6 slowdown. And I'll let you know once I type a character, and you'll notice a noticeable lag when things happen. So for example, yeah, you saw that, right? I'm typing, and it took like half a second until things happened. And if I slow it down even further, because, well, what if it's an older machine or a slower machine, that's gonna take some more time. And yeah, I don't like that, and actually nobody likes that. And the reason for it is, as I said, pretty obvious. So let's undo that because it's unbearable. And instead, let's try to look at the component updates. And again, if I want to highlight everything on the component updates, what I see is that all of the emojis we render. And this makes sense because we have top-level state, because we have to have it for the input to somehow be connected to the DOM and the rest of the emojis. And you could say, well, what if you used like virtualization EVYATAR? Why don't you use virtualization, like windowing of it, so you only render what's visible right now? Well, obviously, I would do that. Only that it's not very simple to do with such a component, because this is not just a grid, this is not just a list, this is not something that you could easily just virtualize, because it's a uneven, ununiform grid. We have the titles that are stuck to the top. We have each category of its own ends unevenly. You have keyboard navigation between those elements. So, and you have to remember the position of all those. And I tried to look for a virtualization solution, and I couldn't find something that works very well in this situation. And also, this means bundling another library with my own library. So I wanted to find an alternative solution. And trying many different approaches, trying memoization, nothing really worked the way I expected. And eventually, I had to come up with a different solution that worked better in my situation. And we're going to build that now. So first of all, let's see what we have here. So we have an emoji, which is, let's remove this thing. Yeah, it's OK. So it's a button element, and it has the emoji character inside. And for accessibility reasons, I added the name of the emoji here to the area label of the element. So we have that already on the DOM. Maybe we could use something like that in order to actually do things without removing and adding stuff back to the DOM every time we write a character in the input. So that was my initial thought, and I went ahead with it. And right now we're going to actually build that solution together that's based on this. So we're going to our component, our search component, and we have a very basic onChange that already exists. It uses the useFilter hook. And let's just remove all that, because, as I said, we don't want all the state updates, just removing and adding stuff. So I'm removing this, and I'm removing the import. And I'll also be removing the onChange. Let's see if we need to remove another thing. Yeah. OK. So we removed basically everything that gives the interactivity to our search. And if I type things now, apart from the frequently used that's just configured to disappear on search, nothing really happens. We're not filtering elements. So this doesn't work, obviously. And let's make it now work piece by piece. So I created a new file. I called it CSS search. OK, so we're going to search by CSS only. And let's create a new component. And this is something that everybody told me always not to do and never to do. And as a practice, when somebody tells me not to do something, I have to do it. So yeah, I know, that of course. So let's do a new component, function. Let's call it CSS search. By the way, 3 S's in the same name of the component that some are kept, that's annoying, but yeah, let's deal with it. It's going to get the value. And let's also add some types. So that's going to be a string. Let's start with just rendering nothing. So if not value, let's return null. Null. Yeah, cool. OK, so we have a component that does nothing. It returns null. But let's just add it here. So we have the input component, or the input element. Let's just add it to this place. So CSS search, and we're going to give it the value. Now we don't have a value yet because we're not getting it from anywhere, so let's just get it a new state. And that's the only state that we're going to add. I promise you, we're not going to add more than that. So use state, and it's going to be a local state just to this component, which is not the top level state that will cause everything to re-render. So let's do a new state, and it's going to default with an empty string. And let's do const creating of name, value, and set value. Okay, so let's pass the value to our search component, and yeah, I think we can just use that, I guess. Yeah, it's already here. Yeah, okay. So we have updates, and still nothing is happening, and again, that's because we're returning null. Fine, okay. But what is the first thing we want to do when we search? We actually want to remove everything that's not needed. Okay, so let's do that. I'll remove everything that we don't need. Enough time. Okay, so let's do return, okay, and this is the fun part. Let's do the things that everybody told us never to do. Let's directly render a style tag. Yeah. That thing. I'm sorry. If this hits anybody the wrong way, I mean, yeah, that's my thing. As Kadi said in the morning, this is my project. I can cut corner. I can do whatever I want. You build your own emoji picker. Yeah. Okay. So how do you remove everything that you don't need? Well, let's start by just removing everything. EPR emoji. That's the class name of our emojis. Let's do display none. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I don't really know CSS. I don't do front end at work. I just got somehow dragged into building this project, and now I maintain it for the past 8 years. So yeah, that thing as well. So in case we have any value at search, we're just removing the emojis. And yeah, okay, so we did 50% of the work. Like 50% of the work is actually removing everything we don't need. Happened to be we removed everything. But that's a good start, I guess. Let's now add back everything that we do want. So what I'm going to do now is going to use a property selector or attribute selector or something selector that's going to be used using the value that we wanted. So let's do EPR emoji. That's our emoji. Okay. That has a property that matches whatever it is that we're going to add inside. So what it is, where it has area label that equals our value, which is what it is that we're putting in the search and then sending back to our component. And all I do now is display flex. Okay, so let me type, for example, the joy emoji, and I have the joy emoji added back. But this works. This is fine. This is nice. This is very, very good. Like a very good improvement upon what we had before. But let me remove just one character. And obviously, JO is part of joy. But the emoji is not showing here, which is annoying. And something very nice that we have with the attribute selector is the partial matches. So if I were just to add the star here, it means that if the value appears in the beginning, middle, or end of our value or area label, it will actually select as well, match as well. So now as I add J, it gives us all of the emojis that contain the letter J. And if I add O, wait. Let me refresh, J-O-Y. So it gives us all of the emojis that contain these 3 letters, the combination of these 3 letters or these 2 letters. That's pretty cool. So let's do bike. Cool. We had a bike here. Nice. But one thing that I noticed, which is also pretty annoying, is the fact that we have empty categories, but the titles appear. What we can do about that, because the categories do not contain the name of the emoji, how can we select them out? So almost 3 years ago already, we got a version of what was previously thought as impossible, a parent selector. or a descendant selector under the name of has. And with some trick of combination with has and not, apparently we can do pretty much everything with CSS. So let's take the category. So EPR emoji category, I think that's the name of the element that we have, the class name of the element of the category. And let's do not. So negate everything that comes within it. Not has. So it does not have an emoji that matches our criteria. And usually this is not very performant, but I noticed that actually in our situation, it works better than actually doing it directly with JavaScript. Apparently it's optimized for this in a better way. And again, let's do display none. So I'm doing display none to remove the categories that do not have an emoji that matches our criteria. And let's see. OK, so no empty categories, which is pretty mind-boggling, I think, considering that we did it with only 3 lines of CSS. Yeah, and just imagine all of the compute power you need just to run the filtering on JavaScript. Yeah, I don't need that at all. No search algorithm apart from what already exists in CSS. But that's not enough because, well, the navigation bar does not make any sense when we don't have half the categories and half the emojis and the scroll is this tiny. So let's also remove the navigation bar, or at least make it inaccessible once we're in search mode. So let's do this. EPR main, which is the main container of our emoji picker. And what I want to do is find and identify whether we have the search input with text in it or not. So apparently, again, we can find something with placeholder shown because our emoji picker and category and input has a search placeholder. So if the placeholder is shown, obviously it means that the input is empty. But if the placeholder is not shown, then we can actually remove other stuff. So let's do that. It not has input with placeholder shown. And what I want to do now is go to the whatever it is. I don't remember the name of this one. So category nav. It's going to be EPR category nav. Yeah. And let's do filter and then grayscale 1 just to see if it works. OK, already we see that the blue disappeared, so we know that we selected it correctly. Let's also make it inaccessible, so opacity 0.3, and also let's do pointer events none, so it's inaccessible by mouse or by touch. And also let's do cursor pointer. So it does not appear as clickable. So let's do zombie, and we see that it's semi-transparent, grayscale, and unclickable. Pretty cool. Okay, so we did everything, like all of the capabilities that we wanted from search, and we still have 16 minutes to go. So what else could we do here? Well, what is search without actually having a counter of the results? Could we do that with CSS? Yeah, right? Does CSS do that? Apparently it does. So let's take the emoji list. What do we have here? EPR emoji list. That's the class name. EPR emoji list. OK. And let's do counter reset. Now, if you've never heard about this CSS feature, that's because it's super new. It's like 1995, I think. So yeah, obviously. So let's call it emojis and reset it to 0. And the way it works, the counter in CSS, is every time it finds a match, you can tell it to increment. So let's do counter increment. And let's say emojis, and increment it by 1. So every time we reach a match here, we'll increment it by 1. And what we want to do now is just display it at the top, right below the search input or right above the emojis. So let's go to the emoji list. And let's edit a before element, because that's how we display stuff. So let's do it after this. Before, and let's do content, because CSS can display content. And we say counter emojis. And let's also add some text, emojis found. Okay, I don't know why I needed an exclamation mark. I'm not shouting at anybody, but let's try. Zombie, and 0 emojis found. What happened? Well, I'll tell you. It's my fault, really. The way it works is that the increment happens every time there's a match. But in the before element of our list, well, there was no match yet because we're still at the beginning. So obviously, let's do after, right? Okay, so zombie, and we have 3 emojis found, but it's at the bottom. And if I do like something, I don't know, it's right here. I don't want to scroll all the way down to find it, so we need to push it all the way up. Now, people would tell me use position absolute and 0, and I don't want it. I want it to be in its own position. I want it to take space. It deserves its own space. We all do. So instead, let's do something different. Let's say the emoji list is a flex. Let's flex it. And what we can also say is that the after element could be ordered -1. So it goes to the beginning of the element, or the flex element, that contains it. And let's try again, and oh, that thing. Of course, flex, yeah, we should have known it. So let's do flex direction column. Okay, so flex direction column, and okay, and we have 275 emojis found. Pretty cool. I mean, still, no JavaScript at all, apart from adding that tiny bit of state. And yeah, well, this is working pretty well. It's pretty ugly, but it works pretty well. What else can we do to improve that? Okay, so just quickly, in case you don't know, a very, very coveted feature of CSS is CSS nesting, because this thing is nasty and I want it to be all contained very nicely. So let's take this one up into the emoji list, and we don't need a preprocessor anymore to do that. Let's just add an and here, and let's add the emoji into this because we want some scoping. And yeah, this one too can go here, but let's use an and. And just to see that we didn't break anything by now, yeah, okay, so this works. We have CSS nesting, we have search-only CSS, CSS-only search, the other way around. But let's also fix this thing, because again, this one is pretty ugly, and it takes us to the next point that I'm really, really, really excited about. So let's go back to the emoji list component, and this is the one that renders all of the categories and all of the emojis and everything that's inside. And I want to talk about the styling of this library for a second, because one thing I noticed is that when you ship a component, an open source component, and who's ever shipped an open source component here? Okay, there are, I knew you would. Okay, a few more. Like, there are a bunch here. And apparently something that happens when you ship a component is that it always sucks. You want to ship styles with your component, and it never works. You either have to ship the styles with a separate CSS files, or it doesn't work with this bundler or that bundler, or it doesn't work with server-side rendering. And so I had to solve that. And I built yet another library, because that's what I do. I built a library that's called FlareUp. Where is it? Yeah, I'm just showing up stuff. Let's go to the website. It's a CSS and JS library that's intended only for package authors, so it's not used for applications at all. And what it is allowing you to do is define your styles in your component as your package owner, and everything will just work. So, for example, Emoji Picker React uses FlareUp for its styling, and It doesn't require the user to install anything. They import the component just as they would import a local component. Everything works. It uses React Native similar style or a Stylex style, and it supports everything you would expect from a CSS and JS library, and it definitely supports everything that an advanced component like the emoji picker needs. So it supports hovers and themes and templates, and pseudo selectors and pseudo elements and classes and even media queries, I think. Yeah, it does, yeah. So, wait. Yeah, it supports even media, you saw the color change? Yeah, I'm not very good with styling, but yeah, I build stuff, so that's enough. But it does support media queries, and it even supports CSS animations. So, for example, this is something you can define in this library, and it actually supports everything you would need in terms of local first development and service. Obviously it supports server-side rendering. And the one more thing is that it gives you the scoping and this style deduplication that you would normally have in other packages. So for example, let's go to FlareUp, NPM, or GitHub. So if you have the same class repeating in multiple parts of your application, obviously it will appear only once in the style sheet. So that's pretty awesome, but let's go back to now show you how to use that inside of the emoji list. So I'm going back, and this is the style for the emoji list. Let's style our after element. So let's do after, and what was it? Font size, obviously it supports TypeScript, so it'll give you type hints. Let's do 85%, and what is your favorite shade of gray? Let's do 8A8A8A. That's valid, right? And also let's do padding left 10 pixels. Yeah, it will work. And let's go back to our storybook. Is it open still? Yeah, it's right here. Okay, so let's do bike, and we see that it's now styled. It's pretty cool. It just worked as you imagine it to work. It gives you all of these scopes that you define. They go back here, and of course they're typed by TypeScript, so you'll actually see them appear. And so if I do styles, you'll see here that it gives me all of the scopes that are locally defined. If I do another one, just for the conf, yeah, okay, it will obviously appear here. So that's pretty cool. It gives us type safety when developing our styles in our open source packages. Again, if you're building an open source package, that works. But so we pretty quickly built all that search only in CSS, and I thought it would be cool to actually show you another thing because we have still a few more minutes. And the thing is that I lied to you earlier because I told you that building virtualization for this package is actually impossible. Well, I didn't say it's impossible. I said it's very difficult. And it is difficult, but recently in the past few weeks, I've had a lot of time up in the air, flying across the Atlantic over and over again, back and forth. And I thought, well, I'm offline anyway. I'm not paying for in-flight internet. So better use the time to actually do something interesting. And I thought, well, I could probably build my own virtualization solution for my library because I do have those specific needs for keyboard navigation and for all this complex grid. And so I did. So it's not published yet. So let's remove everything that we just built, because it's already in production. I don't care about it anymore. And yeah, let's also remove this one file. Okay, so it now builds, and oh. Yeah, and I went now to the virtualize branch. And in this virtualize branch, I actually removed all of the CSS search that we created. And yeah, you know, it works, okay, pretty well. And search is pretty fast. Okay, we can actually test it with a performance tab. I'm hoping it's gonna perform now. yeah, it works pretty well, I think, even with ×6. And 20 is always iffy, but let's try anyway. Yeah, I mean, reasonable, even for a 20 times slowdown. And I thought, what would be nice, oh, and by the way, if you're interested in the way it works, so it only renders the elements that are actually on the screen. Everything below here, I think, is actually not rendered at all. All of the elements take their position in an absolute manner, so top 0 and left whatever. Yeah, just like that. And the elements get re-added and removed from the DOM every time we make a change. And search works well. I removed all of the CSS search from that part, so there's not much applicable value to that. But maybe we could npm publish that, like to all of those 500,000 downloaders a week. Yeah, okay, it's done. So. Now, why did I do that for? Why did I show you the CSS search if it's not actually usable? I mean, it is usable. You might actually find any of that useful in any of your work problems, challenges, opportunities. I don't know. I never found any other use case for that. But the thing is that I did it just in spite because people told me not to do it, and I wanted to do it anyway. And sometimes when you face issues and you face challenges and you face problems, just try. Just do something unexpected. Just play with it, and eventually something might stick, something might work. Be creative. Enjoy what you do. That's the most important thing. Yeah, thank you.